My wife announced. I quit my job to support your career. Now you need to support us. I replied, that's interesting. Then I called her boss, who confirmed she was fired for stealing client data. When the police arrived with a warrant, I had already packed all of her bags. I, Nathan, 38, male, had been with Deanna, 36, for 11 years, married for 8. Our life was meticulously constructed. We lived in a large, modern house in the manicured suburbs of Cary, North Carolina. I was a chemical engineer for a prominent biotech firm in the Research Triangle, earning $155,000 a year. Diana was a wealth management associate at a regional investment bank with a salary of around $90,000. We drove a Lexus RX and an Audi A6, belonged to a local country club, and spent our weekends dining at expensive restaurants like Heron's with our friends, Mark and Alicia. The opportunity that fractured this perfect facade arrived on a rainy Tuesday. An email from a recruiter in Zurich, Switzerland, appeared in my inbox. A global pharmaceutical giant was offering me a position as Director of Process Development at their primary research and development campus. It was a monumental career leap. The offer included a salary of 250,000 Swiss francs, which was roughly $275,000. It also came with a full international relocation package, a generous housing stipend, and a new Mercedes E-Class as a company car. It was an executive track role, the kind of job I had worked my entire life to earn. That night, I laid out the details for Diana. I spoke of the financial security, the chance to live in Europe, the prestige of the position. She listened with a cool detachment, swirling a glass of Chardonnay. When I finished, she set the glass down. Switzerland, she asked, her tone dismissive. It's so boring and rigid, Nathan. She shook her head. My entire client base is here. What am I supposed to do? Become a banker's housewife? She framed my ambition as a personal attack on her career. You're asking me to throw away everything I've built for your little European fantasy. Update 1. I told the Swiss company I needed a month to finalize the details, but my decision was already made. Diana's resistance felt less like a genuine concern for her career and more like a rejection of any future that wasn't centered around her. She continued to belittle the opportunity at every turn. During a dinner with Mark and Alicia, she let out a theatrical sigh. Nathan wants us to pack up and move to the land of cheese and clocks, she announced. He thinks it will make him feel important. Never mind that my career would be completely destroyed. Mark looked at me, his expression serious. Her career is just as important, Nate. She's got real momentum. Alicia nodded in agreement. You can't just expect her to drop everything. They saw me as selfish and impulsive. I offered no defense. I just let her narrative hang in the air between us. The following week, I began my private preparations. I opened an international account with a Swiss bank. I spent my evenings researching modern apartments in Zurich's elegant Seafield district. I started taking online German lessons. I also noticed Diana had become intensely secretive with her work laptop, snapping it shut whenever I entered her home office. A quiet, unsettling suspicion began to form in my mind. Update 2. I decided to tell her my final decision on a Friday evening. After a long week, I wanted the conversation to be direct and final. Deanna, I've formally accepted the position in Zurich. I stated calmly, my start date is in 3 months. Her face, which had been relaxed, hardened into a mask of cold fury. You went behind my back. After I told you exactly how I felt about this. This is my career. I replied, my voice even. This is our future. No, she said, standing up. You don't get to make that decision for me. Her voice was low and menacing. If you take that job, you are going alone. You have to choose, Nathan. It is your career, or it is our marriage. I looked at her, at the calculated anger in her eyes. I thought about her secretive behavior, the closed laptop, the late nights she claimed were for work. My choice was clear. I choose my career, I answered. 2 weeks later, she came home from work in the middle of the afternoon. Her face was pale, her expression a mixture of feigned exhaustion and resolve. She sat down on the living room sofa and made her grand announcement. I quit my job, she said. I did it to support your career. Since you're forcing us to move, I decided to put our marriage first. Now you need to support us. Update 3. I looked at her, at the carefully constructed performance of a noble sacrifice. That's interesting. I replied, my voice neutral. She seemed to take my calm response as acceptance. She announced she was going to take a nap to recover from the stress of it all. The moment I heard her bedroom door click shut, I walked into my office and closed the door. I found the number for her direct supervisor, a senior vice president named Mr. Caldwell, whom I had met at a few company functions. He answered on the second ring. Mr. Caldwell, I began, this is Nathan Hayes. I apologize for the intrusion, but I need to ask a sensitive question about my wife, Diana. There was a brief pause. Mr. Hayes, he said, his voice grave. I'm afraid I have some bad news. Diana was terminated this morning. He explained that an internal audit had discovered she had been systematically downloading proprietary client lists to a personal hard drive. We believe she was planning to take them to a competitor, he added. The company is pursuing legal action. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. After hanging up, I moved with a cold, methodical purpose. I went to the guest room and pulled out 3 large suitcases. I went into our master bedroom and packed every item that belonged to her clothes, her shoes, her designer bags, her jewelry. I packed her toiletries from the bathroom. I carried the bags downstairs and lined them up neatly by the front door. As I was placing the last suitcase, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find 2 police detectives on the doorstep. They had a search warrant for Diana's electronic devices. I let them in and pointed toward her home office. She emerged from the bedroom, awakened by the noise, her face a mask of confusion. What is going on? She asked. I pointed to the suitcases. I suggest you call your lawyer, I said. The detectives found the stolen data on her laptop within minutes. I watched as they escorted her out of the house I had just erased her from. My move to Zurich was no longer a choice. It was an escape. A few weeks later, I was on a plane, my old life a distant memory. I landed in Zurich to a new life, a new city, and a profound sense of relief. Update 4, 6 months in Zurich felt like a rebirth. I was becoming conversational in German. I had joined a rowing club that practiced on the pristine waters of Lake Zurich every weekend. The work-life balance was a revelation. My apartment in Seefeld was a minimalist sanctuary, with a balcony that offered a stunning view of the lake and the Alps. At work, my team achieved a major breakthrough. We developed a new process that optimized the production of a new oncology drug, cutting the manufacturing time by nearly 20%. The discovery saved the company millions. In recognition of my leadership, I received a special performance bonus of 50,000 Swiss francs. I used a portion of it to buy a vintage Jaeger LeCoultre watch, a symbol of my new, well-ordered life. One afternoon, I received a text from Alicia. Hey Nate. Heard you're loving Switzerland. Mark and I were just talking. We heard some absolutely crazy rumors about why Diana left her job. I thought of Diana's dramatic declaration. I quit my job to support your career. The lie was so audacious, it was almost impressive. I replied to Alicia with polite detachment. It turned out to be a very complicated situation. I'm just focused on my life here now. I hope you are both well. Update 5. My company's quarterly report featured our team's success story prominently. A major European pharmaceutical journal requested an interview with me for a feature on innovation in biotech manufacturing. I agreed. When the article was published online, I shared the link on my LinkedIn profile. My new title, Director of Process Development, was now part of my public identity. The article found its way back to North Carolina. Diana, who was out on bail and awaiting trial, must have seen it. A series of increasingly frantic emails began arriving in my new work inbox. Director. You told me it was just a senior management role. One read. Another accused. You let me destroy my entire life for a job you lied to me about. A few days later, Mark called me. His voice was full of shame. Nate, we were complete idiots, he said. We just read that article. And we finally heard the real story about her job from someone at the bank. She told us she quit as a grand gesture to save your marriage. She lied to everyone's face. My parents, who had been confused and hurt by the sudden divorce, also called. We understand now, son, my father said. You did what you had to do. We are so proud of you. The update 6, after her trial, she received a hefty fine and 2 years of probation. A month later, she was standing outside my apartment building in Zurich. She looked thinner, and the polished confidence she once wore like armor was gone, replaced by a raw, desperate energy. "Nathan, please," she said, her voice shaking. "I know I don't deserve it, but I had to see you." "Why are you here, Diana?" I asked. "I've been through hell," she said. "I lost everything. But it was a wake-up call. It made me realize I was wrong. I've changed. I'm ready to be the person you always deserved. You were fired for committing a crime," I stated, my voice flat, "and then you constructed an elaborate lie to make me financially and emotionally responsible for it." I was scared. She insisted. I wasn't thinking clearly. "No," I replied calmly. "You were thinking very clearly. Your plan just failed." I stepped back into the lobby. "There is no us to fix. You need to go home." Update 7. Her final act was one of pure, impotent rage. She sent an anonymous letter to my company's head of human resources, accusing me of corporate espionage at my previous company. She claimed I had a history of unethical behavior, and that I was the real criminal in our relationship. My divorce lawyer in the United States handled it with swift efficiency. He contacted her probation officer and her lawyer, providing them with a copy of the letter. He informed them that her actions constituted harassment, defamation, and a clear violation of her probation terms. He also provided my Swiss HR department with a glowing letter of recommendation from my former CEO, along with documentation of my spotless record. The accusations were so baseless that my company dismissed them immediately. Her attempt to destroy my new life only served to expose the depths of her own desperation. Update 8. 2 years passed. My life in Zurich was calm, prosperous, and fulfilling. I had been promoted to Senior Director of European Operations. I was in a healthy, stable relationship with a woman named Lena, a Swiss art historian. Our life together was built on a foundation of quiet trust and shared passions. We spent our weekends hiking in the Alps and exploring art galleries. One afternoon, I received a final email from Diana. She was working an administrative job at a small real estate office. Her legal fees had wiped out her savings. "I know this means nothing now," she wrote. "But I am truly sorry for the lies, the theft, and the damage I caused. I have to live with that every day." I read her words and felt a final, definitive sense of closure. I replied with a single, polite sentence: "I wish you the best in finding peace." I archived the message, closing the last chapter of my old life. Final update. A year later, I was the keynote speaker at an international biotech conference in Boston. After my speech, I was approached by Mr. Caldwell, Diana's old boss. He was now a senior executive at a different financial firm. "Nathan," he said, shaking my hand warmly. "That was a brilliant presentation. I've been following your career. Congratulations on all your success." He paused, his expression turning serious. "I also wanted to say that I'm sorry you were put in such an impossible position with Diana. It was a terrible business." He shook his head. "To try to leverage her own crime into a form of marital martyrdom. It was one of the most cynical things I've ever seen." His words brought a quiet, final resolution to the entire affair. I reflected on the lesson I had learned. When someone proudly announces they are making a great sacrifice for you, it is wise to inspect that sacrifice very closely. Sometimes, it is not a gift, but a beautifully wrapped invoice for their own failures. Diana's declaration that she had quit her job to support my career was never about support. It was an attempt to shift the consequences of her actions onto me. True partnership is built on shared integrity. My new life was proof that choosing that integrity, over a lie, was the only choice that mattered.